It's a good fact. And I'm talking. Meu celular phone outside.
Hello everyone, good evening.
Good evening.
So as we usually do, yes, the microphone is too loud. It's better now. So as we usually do every second Monday of the month, we have our meetings in English. So this being the second Monday of March, here we are back again for another reflection on the Gospel according to Spiritism in the English language, for us to know a little bit more, build our vocabulary, understand the teachings of Jesus according to the Spiritist movement or the Spiritist doctrine. And we usually, our meetings are divided in two sections. The first one is when we have a friend of ours. Tonight will be Nancy. She will come and read a small passage from a book and read this inspirational message and make a few comments on that passage. Then we have the main talk of the night. Usually, I'm usually here, Hendrik, or some other friend that can help us with this study. And before we do that, we have our initial prayer so that we can all gather our thoughts and think about the good spirits who are always surrounding us. Thank God and thank our dear Master Jesus for his blessings, for his teachings, and ask them their protection so that we can have a good meeting and a good understanding of what the message is. So as we move along, let's if you wish to, you can close your eyes so that we can concentrate and focus on the words and on the meanings of the words, so that we can connect even deeper with the goodness that emanates from God and from the good spirits by saying, "Dear God, our Creator, we would like to thank you for being here tonight. We know how precious life is, and how precious our lives are, because they were made by you, so that we can learn to live, to love, and to progress. May your love surround us. May our hearts feel this love. May our hearts be able to breathe this love, so that our entire body, our entire being can become this love that comes from you, non-stopping. We would like to ask that your protection tonight be upon all of us present here, be us the incarnated, or those spirits who also are around us here, listening, studying with us, inspiring us. May them all also be protected and surrounded by your love. May tonight's meeting be one that can allow us to see your laws in a way that can change our perception and our behavior in the world. With this prayer, we would like to ask your blessing for tonight's meeting, with our hearts filled with love and compassion. So be it. So as I said, let's invite Nancy, and she will read a passage from the book Our Daily Bread and then make a small comment.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight's message is from the book Our Daily Bread from Chico Xavier, and the number is 97. The title is Guard the Good Deposit. Guard the good deposit that was entrusted to you. This is Paul 11 Timothy 1:13. Distribute the resource that Providence provided to your working hands. However, do not forget that the consoling words to the sickly represents a direct service from the heart in the cultivation of righteousness. The bread from the body is an alms for which you will receive proper compensation, while a friendly smile is an eternal blessing. Send messengers to the fraternal aid, but above all, at least every now and then, do not overlook visiting the sick brother and personally listen to him. The expedition of assistance is a gesture that will make you likable. However, your direct intervention of assistance to the needy will provide you with the spiritual preparation to face your own battles. Climb the platform and teach the path of redemption to all. But interrupt your discourse every now and then in order to listen to the laments of a companion through his personal human experience, even if it comes from a child of despair or of ignorance, so that you do not lose track of the proportions in your path. Cultivate the flowers of the private garden of your loved ones, because without the flower bed of experience, it is difficult to follow the noble and intensive task. However, do not flee from the human forest, fearing the worms and monsters that inhabit it, as it is crucial that you prepare to advance within it in the future. In the circles of life, do not forget the necessity of engraving the teaching within you. Just as it is impossible to receive individual nourishment through a substitute or to learn a lesson by storing it in someone else's memory, you will not be able to present yourself in front of the supreme forces of wisdom and of love by way of victories that you have not personally lived or personally achieved. Guard, therefore, within you the good deposit that was entrusted to you. Well, it's really a beautiful message, as usual. Melo always brings some message to us to make us reflect about it. And sometimes we have some message that talk to people that doesn't have any kind of religion, or for people that do not believe in God, in Jesus, or don't go to any church. But this message is straight to us, to the people who has some religion, to the people who works as a volunteer here or any other religion place. This message comes to us and talk to us to remind us there is a lot of work to do. And interesting, we usually think when somebody tell us about charity, the first thing comes in our mind is give some money to anybody, right? It's, I don't know why, but the first thing comes to our mind is this. Oh, let's help somebody else. Okay, let's give some money to them. And this message comes to say, well, if you give some money to anybody, of course you are helping. Maybe this person is starving or needs some clothes, some blanket, or whatever. Of course you are helping. But it says that we can do much, much more than this. We can, give a smile, a word, visit a person in the hospital or whatever, in their home. People, when they are desperate, or they are sick, or any kind of situation, they could be sad. And this message come to us to say that. Go and do something from you. Because take money from my pocket is easy. But go and help somebody else, do something with my hands is different. The other day I was listening on YouTube one of the lot of lectures, and one guy said one thing that's really true. He said, well, helping poor people is not easy. They smell bad. That's true. And I remember this when I was reading this message because, again, giving money is easy. And it says, another thing that's very important I saw, it says, in the circles of life, do not forget the necessity of engraving the teaching within you. It says that when we born, the seed to be good is inside us. He used the word engraving. It's kind of a tattoo. Be good. We born with this thing. So we are prepared to help anybody, regardless the situation. And another thing that this whole message is really beautiful. It's kind of message we should read over and over again, but our time is short. And on the last paragraph, it has, let's see, to learn a lesson by storing it in someone else's memory, you will not be able to present yourself in front of the supreme forces of wisdom and of love by way of victories that you have not personally lived or personally achieved. It means you have to do. It's different. Well, I could say, you know what, my mom is a very good person. She helps this and that, so I'm all set. It doesn't work like that. We have to learn that it's not between me and you. It's not between me and my family, my friends, my neighbor. No, it's between me and the Almighty. At the end of the day, It's between me and him with capital H, right? So whatever we do, we have to understand that we are doing to his children. Well, I hope you guys have a chance to read it again, because like I said, there is a lot of information and more things to reflect, but my time is gone. Thank you very much. And I will ask Mackenzie to come.
Thank you, Nancy. There are so many good examples of what Nancy finished by saying here. It's so true, and how sometimes we think exactly like she said. Oh, somebody did this, so I'm safe, right? Or my father did this, or my teacher did this, then I'm the greatest. No, you didn't do it. So it's. And we tend to say sometimes as well, you are angry at being angry at someone is like taking the poison and hoping and wishing that the other person dies, right? It's being angry is like poisoning your own body, and so you're angry at someone. Apparently, you're hoping that the other person dies, but who is taking the poison is you. So it's the same idea that we unfortunately, we still tend to believe in and to cling to in our own lives. Moving forward in terms of the gospel according to Spiritism here is we are working on chapter number 5, and as we keep saying month after month, after having studied all the chapters in their entirety. So from the beginning of these meetings in English, what we were doing was studying each chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism. So we went through the introduction, through everything until the last chapter, 28. And then after we finished that, we restarted the Gospel according to Spiritism. But now we are moving on item per item, and trying to reflect a little bit more on each of the items so that we can understand how Spiritism sees life, and how we hope that these explanations and these concepts can actually make a difference in our own lives. So as we are talking about chapter number 5, which is blessed are the afflicted, we already studied a few of the items, as I said, and we are going today to talk about past causes of afflictions. So chapter number 5 is the largest chapter in the Gospel according to Spiritism. It has the more items, it has the more pages, it has the biggest number of reflections. And this is, to some degree, it is very sane, because we all are, if we are here on earth incarnated, or even if we are discarnated, but we are still connected to earth, it means that we still have a lot to learn, a lot to progress, a lot to develop in ourselves. And it is natural that we are still afflicted by what's happening in the world, or in the world. We are made of, in terms of materiality, we are made of matter. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's a living creature or if it's not a living creature. So if it's a frog or if it's a chair, it has its time. There will be a day when it will die. It doesn't matter if it's alive or not. A frog will die much sooner than a chair. But there will be, before these chairs that we have here, we had black chairs. And they were all starting to rot, and they were all starting not to work fine, and then we had to have this big campaign to get new chairs. Maybe these will last 20 years, but there will be a day when they will need to be replaced again. So everything, materially speaking, dies. Everything will rot. Everything will come to an end in this sense. So, materially speaking, independently if we believe in this religion, in that religion, if we think this or if we think that, we all know that we will die. We all know that we will become sick. We all know that our hair will fall. Some people don't have hair anymore. Some people have way too much hair, right? In their faces including, right? And but one day, we all get old and we all die. We will all have problems. And this is just speaking about physical problems. That's normal. I may break a leg. I may, distend a muscle. I may, fall. Whatever it is, get the flu or get a cold or, I'm coughing because I whatever it is. So these are physical afflictions. This is natural. This is normal. There's nothing wrong about it. I mean, of course, we don't like to be sick. We don't want to die, or we don't want to go through these things. But we all know that this happens. So when Kardec decides to grab a chapter and make that chapter the biggest one, for whatever reason, we don't know. I'm not reading his mind. I don't know. I didn't talk to him personally to come here, right, to talk tonight. But by the way he works and by the way he organized all the books, we kind of see that he had something in mind. He had a method of organizing things. He had this idea of what and how this book, specifically the Gospel according to Spiritism and all the others as well, have something that he wants to achieve a goal. He wants to achieve an objective. And so when he, after the introduction in the first 4 chapters, where he sets basics for what he will discuss in the rest of the book, he starts with this teaching by Jesus by telling us that we will all cry, that we will all scream at one point, that we will all be, hungry, that we will all be thirsty for something. But pay attention that those who are suffering like that and they understand what it is, they will be blessed in the end if they really understand the concept and the idea that's behind it. So we talked about justice of afflictions. We talked about causes of present day afflictions, which was last month with Hendrik. And today what we're going to talk about is past causes of afflictions, and we have to have a brief introduction, just the way Kardec does here. So, what is past causes of afflictions? So he says, if you are suffering something, if there's something that's bothering you, that's happening in your life, and you don't know, and you can't find how. Even if you did a big research on your own life and you cannot find a reason why that thing is happening to you in this life, then if we believe in God, if we believe that there is justice in the universe, if we have that belief that there is this almighty, powerful, and just and good creator of the universe, then we have to try to find a cause for the thing that I'm suffering right now in a previous moment. Otherwise, God would be completely unjust. By making a person suffer now without having any specific cause. And Kardec will go and talk to us about this simple but yet completely encompassing of everything that there's in the universe, this idea of effect and cause. So if I raise a remote control and I leave it, it will fall. Why? Because there's this thing called law of gravity that we discovered, that we didn't create, that we discovered, that says that one object that's big in mass will attract other objects to them. That's cause and effect. A big planet has a bigger gravity. So everything that we do is a cause for something, and then there will be an effect. So right now, for example, I am standing out here. By standing here, I am, of course, making my body get tired. I can only stand for such and such amount of hours. So there's the cause for me to stand, and then this will generate a lot of effects. One of them is making me tired. I have this pain in my belly, for example, or I have a pain on my knee. Why do I have a pain on my knee? Well, I don't know. So what happened? And then we would have to go back and start thinking of what happened to me? What did I do with my leg? Did I hit something? Did someone hit me? Did I hit it in the car by driving? Am I or was I in an accident? So we start probing our own conscience, remembering, trying to remember, what did I do for my knee to be hurt? And that's natural in ourselves. But there are some things in our lives that either I don't remember, because maybe it was too long ago, and I don't join cause and effect. So, for example, a person that was born in the, let's say, in the 1890, let's say, before the 1900s. And the person died in, let's say, the 1960s. So the person was more or less 70 years old when the person died, which is, we probably know a few people around that age. Let's say that around 1930s, that person started to smoke. And then when it comes, then that person would be more or less, let's say, 35, 40. And then when the person got to 60 something, the person started to have a big problem in their lungs, and couldn't breathe correctly, didn't know what was going on, and then the person dies. And the person could ask, why am I having this problem? I would be inclined to say that that person, without being alive today, where we know for sure that smoking causes cancer in the majority of cases, causes big problems in lung and in respiratory system, that at that time, that person could ask themselves, but what am I doing wrong? Because at that time, it was very likely that no one had made the deep connection between smoking and cancer, or smoking and lung problems. And the person would say, why is God punishing me? Why do I have this and the other person doesn't have this? But I didn't make the connection between cause and effect. So I can, quote unquote here, blame somebody else. And therefore, if we are religious, we would blame God, or we would blame whatever the name it would be. That would still be a present cause of afflictions, like Kardec is saying. Because I cannot blame a previous existence or a previous life for my lung cancer. I smoked. So if I have lung cancer, why am I looking for a reason, for a cause in a previous life? So what we talked about up to this moment is Kardec trying to teach us and show us that although sometimes we can see things as coming from a previous life, we have to really pay attention. I wanted to make this a little longer because I think this is very important, very, very important. We Spiritists, and I'm going to open another parenthesis here. We Spiritists have probably the terrible, how can I say this? Idea, custom, this, this conception, this habit. We tend to think about reincarnation, right? We tend to think about, previous lives and future lives so often that we tend to think that everything is related to a previous life. And we tend to forget that, I wouldn't say most of it, but a lot of our problems are created right here, right now, because of the way we behave, because of the way we drink, because of the way we eat, because of the way we live our lives. And we tend to put blaming other lives, so that's why I'm trying to wrap this this part that we talked about here before going to the past causes of afflictions, because it is something that concerns me sometimes. When a person comes to the Spiritist Center and the person has this big problem, whatever the big problem is, and I'm not judging big or small because we cannot compare problems. It's kind of hard, very hard to compare problems. If I say that my problem is big, it's not because it's big for you, it's because it's big for me. And how am I going to compare one that's for you, it's smaller? It's kind of hard to really put into. So we have to put into perspective most of these things. But if a person comes into the Spiritist Center with a problem, we have to listen to that problem. We cannot start judging that problem and thinking about, that might be this, that might be. No, we have to listen to the problem and make the person think about what is that's causing that, and probe into that problem and really try to pinpoint what is that thing. That's why psychology helps a lot. Because psychology doesn't worry most of the time with previous lives. So they try to really make us see what my behavior, what is in my mind that's causing what I'm living. And if it reaches a point that they cannot see what it is, then that's when we enter to what Kardec is saying. Freud, in his psychological evaluations and all the theory that he put forth, he discovers that a lot of problems that people have relate to early childhood. And how much do we remember of our childhood? I don't remember what I did yesterday sometimes. How can I remember what I did or what was done to me when I was 2, when I was 1, when I was 6 months old? Then maybe I had an abusive mother or an abusive father, or something happened to me that neither my father or my mother did and didn't pay attention, didn't know what happened, what someone that took care of me did to me. And that causes in my body and in my psyche affects the way I am today. So this is something that, to my understanding, and that's what Kardec tries to do here. He really puts these things into 2 big boxes and make us look at these 2 boxes and say, hey, you cannot use only one box. You cannot put everything into the box of past causes of afflictions. We have to really pay attention. Isn't there a possibility that it was something that was done in this life that's making you feel like this? So that's what Hendrik spoke and what we talked about the previous two talks here. And it's all recorded, it's all online, we can always go back and listen to them. But now Kardec says, okay, and that's how he starts. Although there are misfortunes in this life caused by man himself, by the human person, the human being himself, There are also others which seem to be completely strange to him, in which should touch him like fate. For example, then he goes to this example. I promise I'm not going to read a lot. There are just a few things that I think are very, very important for us to get to what Kardec wants to. For example, the loss of a loved one or the breadwinner of a family, person that works and brings food, brings accidents that no amount of foresight could have prevented, reverses in fortune, natural disasters, infirmities from birth, diseases from birth, especially those which make work or the earning of a livelihood impossible, like such as deformities, insanity, idiocy, etc. Kardec starts this item by saying this. We know that there are things that can be completely, totally explained by things that happened in this life. Once we cannot see and we cannot find a cause for these things in this life, then we may switch over to the other side and start thinking about, didn't it come from a previous life? And then he gives some examples. Let's say, like he says here, a person that's born and then has a birth defect, has a problem, and that nobody could see why this would be caused, why this would happen. Or, like he says, a reverse of fortune. Then the person is completely is rich, and then all of a sudden something happens completely out of his control and of anybody's control, and the person loses everything. Or a sudden death of somebody in your family that destabilizes all the entire family. Where are the causes for this? Where can we find explanations for this if, and here is something that's really, really important. If we think that there's a God that's just and good, if we don't think that, then we need to stop the conversation right now, because then it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense. Because if I don't believe that there's a God that's just and good, that really created everything to try to work the most perfect way, and that wishes the best for all of us, but there are laws that need to be followed, then there's no need to talk about this. Because if there's no God, or if there's no idea of a being that really created everything and that controls or has this oversight over everything, then it's all for no reason. It's all for just random cause, and then there's nothing to worry about. If a person is born or this way or that way, then there's no explanation. So we can just be cynic and then just let it go. Let the person suffer, or let the person. It doesn't really matter what the justification is. So we have to be, when we want to discuss something, we have to know what the basics are so that we can discuss more. So if I want to discuss the English language, for example, I have to know a little bit of the English language. Otherwise, why would I be discussing the English language? If I want to discuss Chinese, the Chinese language, I only know the word xia xia, which is thank you. How can I discuss the Chinese language with someone? That's the only thing I know about Chinese. And I don't even know if that's how it's pronounced. So I don't even know if I know it. So the same thing here. We have to have a basic. And the basic that Kardec, the most basic thing that Kardec does, he doesn't even mention, because it doesn't need to be mentioned in this context, is that God is perfect, is just, is good, period. If we understand this, and if we don't want to mask ourselves and say, oh, this is a mystery that I don't want to go after, this is just God that understands, If I really want to improve my thought, if I really want to go after this and try to make sense of how the universe works, and we understand that for every effect, there's a cause that caused it. For everything that happens, there was something that happened before. For everything that's going on right now, it started before that time. We will start to understand that if I cannot find a reason, if I cannot find a cause for a suffering that I'm going through right now, that was caused either by me or by something in my life, in this present life, as Kardec already pointed out in the chapters before, we would need definitely to go back to a previous existence and find that there might have been something that I did back then that is still reflecting on me, on this existence that I'm living right now. And that's a cause for consolation. Why? Because now I have a better explanation of why I suffer. And that's something that basically, and as Kardec puts here, he puts no other, but I would just, so that not to be so blunt like Kardec, but that basically it's almost no other philosophy around the world talks about. It's like it's a mystery. It is a mystery why a baby boy or a baby girl is born with this defect, is born with, I don't know, one leg or 3 eyes or whatever the problem is, or why am I suffering like this? Why am I all the men or all the women that I find, or all the businesses that I open and everything that I do, nothing works. Why? And then we keep asking ourselves. And we will understand by reading this and going deeper into this, the concept that Kardec exposes to us here in these items, from items 7 to 10, 6 to 10 in chapter 5, that he shows us that, and that's the basis of his argument, for every effect, for every little thing that happens in our lives, there needs to be a cause to it. Something happened here for this to be happening. I was very young. I was young one day, like you guys, I was young one day. I was in college in Brazil. So we were having this meeting in the library. We were studying for a physics exam that would come up soon. And then there was this book. The teacher asked us to read these chapters, make a summary of it, present something. And the book was about quantum physics. And something in that book caught my eye in a way that I can remember it up to this day. That's why I'm telling you the story. I was reading about these interactions of particles and how atoms interact with other atoms and molecules and all that stuff, and how the universe is formed and all these microscopic things. And then the guy in the book was talking about how things influence other things and how we are not able to predict some things that can happen, in the universe. And he was talking about precision of determination of stuff. So let's say if we want to measure the size of this lectern here, we would get like a tape measure. They put from here to here and measure. And then we can measure it with the precision of, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, 1/32 of an inch, whatever. And then the more we divide, so 1/64 of an inch, 1,000th of an inch. And the more we try to be precise, the harder it becomes. Because now, what are you measuring? Is it an atom? Is it a molecule? What is that we are measuring? And he says, this is to come to this point where he will say, and that's one of the theories in physics, is that you cannot determine with the biggest precision in the world the speed and let's say the speed and the size of a thing at the same time. If you measure the speed of something, you cannot measure precisely the space. If you measure the space, you cannot measure the speed, and so on. So you can only measure one thing at once, precisely. And he comes to this whole idea, and he says, let's say that we want to predict where a planet will be in 10 years in space, but predict with precision, with really, 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 really big precision. And we know, and I talked a little bit about it before, right? The laws of gravity. So if I throw this out, it will fall because the planet will attract this. And so we are circling around the sun because the sun has a big gravity pull, and then the Earth is attached to it, like all the other planets, like the moon is attached to our Earth, and so on and so forth. But you can imagine that if I have the Earth right here and the moon is right here, so if the moon is here and it comes this way, and that's why we have the tides, right? So the moon is right here, it's attracting the water this way, right? So the tide is big here, correct? Because the moon is attracting the water, trying to pull the water towards it. On the other side, the water is like smaller because it's being attracted to this side too. So it's like low tide here and big tide here. But imagine that you have the Earth, you have the moon, and you have the sun. They're aligned, the same position. That's the biggest tide. Why? Because the Earth, the sun is attracting the Earth and is attracting the water. The moon is also attracting. So you're adding the forces. So every little ball in the universe, every small component is attracting, pulling one side while the other pulls to the other side. So this pulls to this side, the other pulls to the other side. So if we want to know precisely the level or the height of the tide, we would need to consider not only the moon, we would need to consider Mercury, Venus, Mars, the sun, the moon, and every comet that's around, every other planet that's around. The farther the distance, the less the attraction, but it attracts. This guy in this book, he says this, and I'm talking about big things here, right? We cannot even know the size of the sun. We only see it, but we don't have any idea of the size of the sun. He says, if we want to know the position of a planet and a corner of the galaxy, we have to consider the distance and the gravity of, and he uses this expression, the gravity pull from one atom to that position. So, and then he says it differently in another way. He says, let's say I have a pool table and I'm playing Snickers, right? And I hit the ball, and the ball will do all these things, and it will stop at a point. It says, if I want to know with precision where that ball will stop, I have to consider the gravity of a dust at the end of the galaxy. That's how he says it. When I think about our lives, when I think about what make us be what we are. And the amount of influences that we have based on the amount of stuff that we do, and we tend to point and blame others for what we're doing. It is like, okay, I can put the blame on that small dust particle across the galaxy, but what is more important? What has more effect on me? Is it that person that did something to me from 3,000 miles? Or is it me doing something to myself? The sun has a lot of gravity. It's much bigger than the moon. But the moon is closer to Earth. And the tide caused by the moon itself is bigger than the tide caused by the sun, even being bigger. So I am mostly the main cause of the most of my afflictions, because everything in me is the closest to me. So trying to blame other people for what is happening to me is at least naive. Just so I don't say anything else, it's at least naive when it's not something else. Everything that I do here in this life, or that I did in previous lives, is still here with me, because it's something that I did to myself. So it's very close, independently of time, because I did it. So it's like it's circling inside of myself. It's like a moon circling inside of me. I did it in a previous life, it will accompany me, because it's me. It's not somebody else, it's me. So when you say, oh, me in a previous life, I did, that guy did this. No, it's me. It's not that guy or that girl that did this in the past. No, I did it. I did it. So it keeps coming back, and it keeps calling me to fix it. Keeps calling me to say, look, you need to make things different. Otherwise, it will keep coming to you. Oh, so I have this leak in my house, or I have this problem at my work, that this table keeps falling. This table, the leg is not perfect. Then I go there and do what with the leg? Grab a piece of paper, fold it, and put it below the leg. This doesn't solve problems. This is just a temporary fix for somebody who doesn't want to do the right thing. And that's what we do with our lives sometimes. We try to put like a paper below that leg that's no bending, or the roof is leaking. So, hey, do you have gum there? What? Right? But apparently is how we treat our problems. Sometimes I think that's exactly how we treat our problems. We know that will not solve the problem. We know that it might fix it temporarily, but it's just that, is a temporary fix, and I cannot blame other person for something that I didn't fix correctly at the first place. Oh no, the gum that you gave me is what? You're using the gum and you're complaining about the person who gave you the gum? To stop a leak? So it is, when in Spiritism we come to that idea or that conclusion or that concept that, and really put those things into ourselves and say, hey, if we do believe in God, there must be justice, but not our justice, not our idea of justice. a justice that is a justice system that encompasses everything. That is not pure justice, is justice and love. And that's not just justice and love, it's justice, love, and mercy. That works all together to solve the problem. To say, hey, look, you did this, right? We need to fix this. I'm going to help you. That's the way God works. I am going to help you. I will take from you 10% of what is needed to fix the work. And I'll do the rest, the 90% rest. Oh, thank you, God. And then we get to do the 10% and we complain. Jesus himself, at one point, when talking about this, he tells this story of this person that was, had this big debt against this king. Big, monstrous debt. Comes in, the guy comes, kneels down and prays and asks the king, forgive me, I cannot pay this to you, and if you do, forgive my debt. Then the king, like filled with compassion, says, okay, I will forgive your debt. Then he goes, all free of the debt. Right after he leaves, of course, the king has a lot of people around town, and he's the king, of course, right? So the guy leaves and goes to this person who owes him like 1/1,000,000th of what he owed the king. All of a sudden, the guy comes to him and asks him to forgive him because he cannot pay. He's having trouble with the family. He doesn't have enough money. And then the guy, puts him into prison, whatever it is, does something bad to him. A lot of people that know the king and that they just saw what the king did to this guy comes to the king and says, hey, look, that guy that you just helped and told him that you would forgive his debt, now he is not only, calling for the money that other people owe him, but he's also punishing those who owe him something. And then the king says, grab him. And then grabs him and says, hey, now that you didn't understand the message, now you will stay here. Now you will pay everything that you owe me. Because I'm not doing this so that you owe me something, but it is the way, what I'm showing you is that's how the world works better. Is if we do unto others what we want others to do to us. So at the end, this is the message that Jesus is telling us through that story. And when we see this idea that Spiritism brings to us that, hey, we are still suffering. Why are we still suffering? Maybe because God forgave my 90%, gave me 10%, and now I am not able to forgive not even the same 90% or 10%. I want everything from everybody, but I'm not doing the same that's being done to me. So I still didn't learn. Now, because I didn't learn and I keep doing the same mistakes, the mistakes come back to me, all of them. And then now I will suffer the consequences of what I'm doing. And maybe this is not consoling to a few of us or to a lot of us, but once we understand that there's a causal relationship between what I am suffering now and what I did before, I can at least go back and say, like Chico Xavier, though no one can go back and restart and do a new beginning, anyone can start now and create a new end. So when I have that idea and I have that in mind that, okay, if I am suffering right now and I cannot find any reason why, but I really do believe that God is just good and merciful, I can say, okay, make me understand it. I am going through this. I have to go through this. I will do my best. And from now on, I will not do the same that I did in the past, so that after this, I will not suffer as much as I'm suffering. So that's the main idea of this, past causes of afflictions. It's not for us to be, oh, I am suffering this, and then I was this in the past. Oh, I killed someone in the past, now someone will kill me. Oh, someone did this, I did this to someone, now someone will do this to me. Oh, I robbed, that's why now I'm poor. There is no connection, precise connection to everything. There are general connections. If I didn't do well in this area that I received the possibility, let's say I'm rich, or I have the intelligence, or I have the possibility of doing something, I'm not using it to do something, maybe I will not have it later on. Because, okay, I'm not employing it correctly. That's another parable by Jesus who teaches us the same idea. So it's not for us to try to remember the past and try to see why I'm suffering, but it's the idea that, okay, if I understand this now, it brings to me, or it should bring to me, that idea of, okay, now I understand why I'm suffering. It doesn't remove the pain, it doesn't remove the suffering, but it makes us understand. And understanding is the first step for us to, okay, now what? First thing, stop the blame. Second thing, start to work. That's how it usually is. In school, we blame the teacher because it's hard. Once we learn that it's not because of the teacher, and we stop blaming someone and we decide to study, all of a sudden, it becomes a different story. We may have terrible teachers, but it's up to us to study. It's not to the teacher. Like Nancy said here, it's not the memory of the other person that will make me grow. It's not what the other person did that will make me grow or make me fall. It's what I do that will make me grow. It's what I do that will make me fall. So past causes of afflictions is for us to understand this and say, right now is the past. Right now is the past. From where? From the future. Right now is the past from the future. So 5 years from now, what I'm doing now is the past. On my next life, this life will be the past. So my question is, what am I doing in this past life so that my future life is better? That's what Kardec makes us think. That's what Kardec makes us wonder. And that's what Jesus makes us think about. It's not for now. It's for the future. It's not for this moment. It's for a future moment. Do now so that we can harvest later. Sow now so that we can have a better outcome later on. Whatever happened, happened. Let's deal with it right now and be better, work better, do better things. And chapter 5, items from 6 to 10 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, like I always say, there's much more here than what I was able to say. So my recommendation is always get the book and read those passages, those items. It will be very, very helpful. Before we go to the end of our meeting, we're going to have the passes. I would like to remind everyone that on the 27th of March, on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m., Haroldo Dutra Dias will be here with us. Usually they have English translation. They have people that can translate it. He will be here, not here at Continuum. He will be in Malden, Grupo Espírito Caminho Verdade e Vida, was Allan Kardec Spirit Society of Massachusetts. He will be talking about discovering who you are, and it's $10. You can register online. There are more of these outside, so you can take one with you. So you remember the website here, akssmama.com. You can register online. There is a poster right there with the information that you if you want to go. And I guess that's it. I would just like to also remind everyone that about the gospel at home, or God at home, every week, at least once a week, for about 20 to half an hour. Minutes there, we sit and we get a book. Either it can be the Gospel According to Spiritism or a book of messages, and then we sit down with our family, read a small passage, discuss a little bit the contents, so that we can invite the good spirits to our places and bring some light to our homes and to our neighbors as well. And as the last announcement, I still don't know who, when, I forgot to look online, but I think it's in May, by the end of May. We will have, and this will be in Portuguese, but I'd like to say it anyways. There will be this woman's called Célia Diniz. She's a Brazilian woman. There's a movie where her story is, or part of her story is told. It's a movie called The Mothers of Chico Xavier. She is one of the characters in the movie. She loses her son, and she goes to Chico Xavier for him to bring her a message from her son. And she wrote this book called Overcoming the Pain of Death. And she talks about her story, and she will be here with us. She will be around doing lectures in different spiritist centers in May. And she has, we already got some of her books. So she will be here. She will sign the books. If you want to buy, if you want to read the books, it will be good. She will be here as well too. Yeah, she will be here and continue. She will be at Jetu, at Felma. So she will be around in May. I still don't have the date, but I promise that I will get the date soon. So if you want to grab one of the books, buy one of the books, she will be able to autograph and may talk about the book. And I didn't read the book yet, but I hear that the book is really powerful and it's really interesting. So Overcoming the Pain of Death by Célia Diniz, she will be here, and it's a true story about her life and about how she was able to overcome one of the worst pains, I'd say, in the universe, which is to lose a son or daughter. I'd say that's not easy. So, but coming to the end, let's go to the passes. Passes are not mandatory. If you want to do, you can do it. Adriana will be applying the passes, and right after that, we will say a final prayer so that we can finish our meeting.